this week we all went and saw the Zoe Kravitz directorial debut, Blink Twice. And for this, I'm going to start out on this one. So yeah, Blink Twice is a huge ensemble piece. Like, this is what, like, when we think like ensemble, best ensemble movies, it's an ensemble like this. It's Naomi Ackie, Channing Tatum, Alia Shawkat, Christian Slater, Simon Rex, Adria Arjona, Haley Joel Osment for some reason, Liz Carabell, Levon Hawk, True Mullen, Gina Davis, Kyle MacLachlan, and I had to say them all because they're all like in the movie the majority of the time. Written and directed by Zoe Kravitz. Also, E.T. Feigenbaum has a writing credit on it. And this is a story of Slater King. He is a billionaire philanthropist, tech giant who buys an island after getting canceled and finds some people who want to all go to the island. And a couple of these people are Naomi Ackie, who plays Frida, and her best friend, Alia Shawkat, who plays Jess. And they all go and spend time on this island. How long? No one really knows. And they're realizing they know less and less the more they spend there, as things might not be what they seem. Even though they're having a great time, they're wondering if they actually are. And some stuff starts to feel weird, feel off, and it all kind of falls apart from there. I fell in love with this movie. This movie, it is fun. It is hypnotic. It has something to say in the weirdest way possible. Naomi Ackie's awesome. It's great seeing Adria Arjona, who we saw earlier this year in Hitman, seeing her come back and have another great role. Channing Tatum just rocks the joint in his role, and it's great to see some other guys you don't see very often, like Simon Rex was great. Haley Joel Osment. This is like the perfect Haley. Like, are we in the character actor Haley Joel Osment world now? Because I'm here for it. Like, he was so perfect for the role that he had. And then seeing Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman's kid, not Maya Hawke, but Levon Hawke in this too, was interesting. I didn't even realize it was him until the credits rolled. Yeah, like I said, I fell in love with this movie. I think Zoe Kravitz has a ton of talent behind the camera. She did a lot of really cool things in her decisions as a filmmaker. It was edited really cool. It had this kinetic energy to it, and just the way it was shot and the way it was filmed. And it all kind of falls apart at the end, but it falls apart, like I said, kind of in the best way possible. And are there some plot contrivances? Sure. Are there some things that are just convenient for the plot? Sure. But it doesn't mean that it's not a hell of a good time at the movies. I'm giving this 3.5 stars. I had so much fun with Blink Twice, and everyone needs to go out and see this movie because it is a blast, and it's just cool. It's just cool. We're going to go to Zach next.
Okay. So, this movie do you guys know the original title of this movie?
No.
Pussy Island.
Pussy Island. Great title. Okay. Shame on the film. Shame on the studio for not going with that shit. If it's a puritanical reason, screw that shit, because we have 2 movies coming out later this year called Night Bitch and My Old Ass. Okay. Let's get to the era where it's okay to have lots of profanity in movie titles and in podcasts too. But yes, this movie also comes with a trigger warning at the very beginning. Now, the trigger warning is interesting. Mm-hmm. I read a little bit about it. Apparently, it was only a late addition to the screening, and there was some speculation by a couple of critics I listened to that said they were suggesting that it isn't so much about the movie itself, but it's about a completely different movie that has come out and has stirred up some conversation about depictions of toxicity and abuse in relationships. And that movie is It Ends With Us, which I have still not seen. But I think there's been some reaction to that movie that people were going into it kind of expecting some sort of rom-com or romance movie, but I guess there's abuse depicted in it. You guys have seen it more so than I have, and I think the studio was maybe a little bit nervous that audiences wouldn't be aware of what's depicted in this movie. And there's some spoilers that I think we should get into with this movie, because this movie relies on a pretty big twist that if you've maybe never seen a movie before or have lived under a rock, maybe you wouldn't get that twist, but I think it's a pretty obvious twist within the first 10 minutes of the movie. Okay. And if you know anything about Channing Tatum roles, maybe the last 10 years, you can also kind of detect that maybe he isn't all that he's lives up to be in this movie. Okay, so this movie, the first thing I wrote down a bunch of movies that it reminded me of, because God damn it, there's a lot of movies, especially in the last 10 years, that this is like a lot like. Okay, this is like Get Out. This is like Don't Worry, Darling. This is like The Menu. This is like Glass Onion. It's like so it has that sort of thing where like everybody is jetted into like a destination vacation setting. Okay, that's like a big thing now, I guess, in movies. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Maybe people don't go on vacation anymore. But then this movie also has like some elements of, I would say, like Barbie in it. There's definitely some Saltburn and Promising Young Woman in it. It's got some like Emerald Fennell touches to it. But the strangest sort of reaction I have to it, and this is basically my review of it, is it's kind of like the M. Night Shyamalan movie that never existed. Okay, we reviewed an M. Night Shyamalan movie a couple weeks ago that also had a very clever, well, not clever, but it had a twist midway through. And the problem that I think each of us had with it, I mean, Todd hated it, but Terry and I were a little bit more sympathetic to it, is that it never was able to really wrap up the details about it. And I think that's the same problem with this movie. This movie has a clever idea. It's got good characters. It's got an interesting setup. There are stretches of the movie that are pretty interesting to watch. I agree with Terry. I think Zoe Kravitz is a really talented filmmaker. I would be excited to see her next project. I think this movie is really, really well shot. Lots of nice colors, lots of nice editing. But I think the last 30 minutes of this movie goes a little, not so much crazy, but it just goes in territory that I think we've seen better in other movies. I don't know. I kind of felt like watching this movie. This might have been a really impactful movie had it been released like 10 years ago, or maybe like on the heels of the Me Too movement or Harvey Weinstein. As it is, it just kind of, I think, regurgitates some of the same issues that other movies have. And the biggest one that I thought of really was Don't Worry, Darling. I mean, I think this movie has a lot of like overlap with that movie. And some of the same kind of structural weaknesses of that movie, which is that this movie has a lot of things to say, but it doesn't really wrap them up in a way that's coherent or plausible. I mean, there's literally one of the, I won't, again, without any spoilers, there's a major character in this movie that dies, and it's never like addressed at the end of the movie. Like, what happened there, right? One of the also things that I thought this movie really might have been able to like add new light on, or like a new perspective on. We've had movies where a male character has been canceled before. And in the case of this movie, Channing Tatum is canceled, although it's somewhat vague reasons why he's been canceled. But I think what was kind of curious about this movie, and what was maybe a lost opportunity, was like he's no longer canceled. Like he's kind of back in the limelight, and he's like more culturally accepted. And I think we've had like that happen in our culture. Like Louis C.K. now, there's a documentary about him that's out, right? It's not necessarily an attempt to resurrect his image, but he's like back with people talking about him. Michael Richards has been making the rounds too. Like, what do we do with these male celebrities that haven't necessarily faded away, but are trying to make a comeback? And I wish the movie had kind of focused on that element. That would have, I thought, been the unique original contribution that this movie really could have made to cultural discussions about, toxic masculinity and abuse and rape and allegations and all that sort of stuff, which this movie really gets into in the second half. I guess that's sort of a spoiler warning. But if you don't realize that, then I don't know what movie you think you're watching. So
the disclaimer kind of gives that away too.
Exactly. And maybe the disclaimer wasn't necessary. I don't know. But the movie, I walked out of this movie giving it 3 stars. I thought it had a nice energy to it. I liked the performances in it. I thought the main actress, Naomi Ackie, was really good. Recently, she played Whitney Houston. I didn't see that movie, but I think she's got a promising future to her. I lower it to 2.5. I think this movie needed to be a little bit more insightful than, again, just saying sort of the stuff that has already been said for the most part. I don't think there's a whole lot of like extra dimension to it. And I don't know. I'm left thinking, okay, this character is a victim, and then she retaliates by using some of the same tactics that her, abuser uses. Like, I don't really know what that's suggesting, and I don't think this movie really is saying anything that other movies haven't said already. So I guess it's an unfortunate sort of critique because that's not necessarily Zoe Kravitz's fault. But I wish this movie had gone in deeper, given that it was an interesting premise and setup, and the characters were interesting. So again, experience watching it, probably a 3-star movie, but the more you think about it, the more loose ends you kind of observe with it, it falls to 2.5 for me.
All right, 3.5 for me, 2.5 for Zach. Todd, why is it a 3-star movie?
Well, because giving it 2.5 stars is totally unfair, especially when you admit that you're doing it for reasons other than the movie. This is like that stupid, what was that movie we watched last year with was it Taron Egerton and where he's like a stockbroker or something, him and his wife, and then they get into a thing, and then I know it's like the same argument.
It wasn't Taron Egerton, it was Alden Ehrenreich.
Same thing. Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Well, either way, I'll talk about the actual movie because it's unfair to say what the movie isn't rather than what it is. But this is I think the movie is cut furiously. Like, it's not like Midsommar where it's like a lulling type of thing. They even comment on that in like the first 10 minutes. They're like, so the human sacrifice that before or after dinner or whatever. I thought that was really funny because it was like a clear thing. It was like, I feel like we're in a bad spot, but it like jumps right into it. I really like that. And Zoe Kravitz is a really good director. She has a style to herself. She's enough of a natural that all of the characters in all of the scenes like are oozing her personality. And I can't say I've seen anything quite like that with a first-time director. And sure, there's a little glass onion in the setup. There's a little bit of White Lotus and how every character is like shot and blocked as if they're like the sexiest person on the planet. But I think it's really interesting how it's laid back and how it portrays uneasiness, because I mean, and that is to the effect of like what the movie's actually doing. Because I mean, I didn't know where the movie was going. I don't know what Zach's talking about. I had zero clue. I saw the trailer a few times, but I did not know what the movie was actually going to be doing. Naomi Ackie, I think, is good. I didn't know she had that like funky goofball club in her bag, but she works it. And Channing Tatum, weird spot in his career, right? Like he's this year he's played a NASA head guy and a tech billionaire. Not where I thought his career was going, but I kind of like it.
Not gonna get the Gambit.
And yes, and of course Gambit. And Alia Shawkat, I think, fits into the world most seamlessly. Like, she seems like she could be in every Zoe Kravitz movie going forward. Arjona, she's like a young Salma Hayek. She's a star. She's going to be a movie star for a long time. And the movie eventually tries to be like this feminist Get Out or something, and it doesn't quite get there, but it accomplishes some of that. And I just think the experience is different. I just say screw the trigger warning. That's silly. It's not that kind of movie. And that honestly made me like scratch my head watching it, and it kind of was like took me out of it for like a bit. It's like, why are we even doing this? Like where are we at? But anyway, I think the movie is 2 scenes too long, which is unfortunate. So I give it 3 stars. It was at 3.5 stars for a long time because I really did enjoy the experience of this, and I thought I was left guessing the entire time. But I think the last 2 scenes are completely unnecessary.
That's fair. I could see that.
Yeah,
I don't know. The last couple scenes could have gone without him. Yeah, I don't think it really took anything away though. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Todd, and we want to review the movies that we get and not the movies that we don't get. And I just thought, for the level of talent that is in the cast of this movie and in the composition of the shots and the way that it's all structured together, and I think the importance of the message. I'm not saying that the message isn't important. I agree with the message. I mean, we're living in a culture right now where, for a lot of men in power, and I think even in the next movie we're going to talk about, there's this belief too for a lot of men in power. They believe that the rules don't apply to them. And I think this movie is very much like addressing that aspect that for so many generations has kind of gone unchecked. And I kind of like the idea of like memory in this movie and forgetfulness, and like how the Channing Tatum character uses the inability to remember as a power tool, like that, or tool of power, I should say. He's not Tim the Tool Man Taylor. But I don't like in a way. I just thought the movie was talented enough that I wanted it to say something bigger and I wanted it to say something better. In the end, we're kind of left with something that, okay, I won't say the word derivative, but like it's sort of empty. Like, okay, is this just like another like exploitation revenge movie? Then it's just maybe a modern version of I Spit on Your Grave. Like, I don't think the movie has that kind of shock exploitation element to it.
That's being a spoiler because I didn't even know it was anything like that going in. So like, if I would have known that it was what you just said, I wouldn't have gone to see the movie probably. I would have been like, or I would have gone in with a completely different set of expectations. I did not know at all that it was going to turn the way it did. And that's the spoiler in itself. So we should stop talking about it.
We'll give a trigger warning, not unlike this movie that it has. But you know that Channing Tatum's up to no good. I mean, you know that there's something devious about his character, and you know that there is something mysterious happening, right? And
when you watch a trailer, and then the trailer starts with "So everybody's dead," you kind of get the idea that something goes awry.
Yeah, but I mean, we've completely given away what that is.
I don't think so. I think it's still open-ended enough to know that something bad happens to the characters in the movie and they seek revenge, but we haven't said what it is. And the movie, I think, depicts it in a way that is pretty surprising, even if you know the general tone of the movie. I'm not going to say that the trigger warning is. I don't always love trigger warnings either. I think that there's some imagery in this movie that's pretty shocking, though. I mean, this movie is. I'm not going to necessarily say it's like graphic, but the suggestions that the movie makes about what is happening is pretty intense. And so I didn't think it spoiled the movie, and I could understand it being necessary. But I don't know. I like the movie enough to say that I wish it had been better. That's where I stand on it. And Zoe Kravitz is really talented. I'm excited for her next movie. I think she has a great future in filmmaking ahead of her.
Yeah, she took a big swing with her first one, right? I mean, a lot of actors in their directorial debut will direct some like, Sundance project or something like that. And she swung for the fences, and I think she hit it. So hit out of the park. Keep the metaphor going. All right. Any last words?
Dr. Strangelove also has a trigger warning before it too. So it's not, there's some historical precedence behind trigger warnings as well. But I don't know. It does go on the list of movies that are interesting to talk about. And I suppose it has some value with that. We had disagreements about like Saltburn and Don't Worry, Darling and all that. So they are interesting conversation starters. So if that's the purpose of the movie, that's great. And I got to say, Haley Joel Osment, I mean, he needs to be in more movies as a scumbag asshole villain. Like, can he be in that new movie with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin? Like, that would make a great trio right there. But it was great. It was great seeing that entire cast and Gina Davis, man, she rocks it in this movie. She's awesome.
Well, you guys obviously haven't seen like the weird era of Kevin Smith where Haley Joel Osment was in his movies like Tusk and that stuff like that. That's what I think of modern day Haley Joel Osment. So this fits right in there.
He needs to be in the next Benoit Blanc movie.
Did you really watch this movie and think that Haley Joel Osment wouldn't end up being a scumbag asshole? Or Channing Tatum? I mean,
I didn't know. I did not know any characters' motivations, to be honest. Other than maybe Channing Tatum, because he's obviously like a swindler. But I mean, other than that, I had no idea what anybody was doing when it started, for sure.
I was kind of in the same spot. I didn't know what was going on.
I think it deserves a half-star decline because it wasn't called Pussy Island. That would have been an awesome title. And it would have made some great banners that we could have written. But too bad.
True. Could have. Well, as it is, I'm at 3.5 stars. Todd's at 3 stars. Zach's at 2.5 stars. I think we're all saying it's worth seeing. And it's in theaters right now. Check it out and enjoy.